I never wanted to be the kind of mother who installs secret cameras in someone's house. But when your 4-year-old son comes home with unexplained bruises every weekend and everyone, including your husband, tells you you're imagining things, you do what you have to do. It started 3 months ago when Jake began spending weekends at his grandparents' house. My husband David insisted it would be good for our son to bond with his family while we worked on our marriage. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags in how eager David's parents were to have Jake all to themselves. The first weekend, Jake came home with a small bruise on his arm. He fell while playing in the garden. My mother-in-law, Margaret, explained with her perfectly practiced smile. You know how active boys are. I noticed how Jake clung to me that night, but David said I was reading too much into things. The second weekend, it was scraped knees and a bruise on his back. Roughhousing with Grandpa, David's father, Richard, chuckled. Boys need to toughen up. Jake stopped talking about his weekend visits, becoming unusually quiet when we dropped him off. By the fourth weekend, Jake was crying every Friday when we approached their Victorian house. Please, Mommy, I don't want to go, he'd sob, his little fingers gripping my shirt. David would pry him away, telling me I was making our son soft by coddling him. He's manipulating you, Margaret would say, her voice dripping with fake concern. Children learn to play their mothers like this when they're too permissive. She'd scoop Jake away while Richard and David nodded in agreement, 3 adults united in telling me I was the problem. I started documenting everything, the bruises, the tears, the sudden bedwetting that began after the visit started. Jake's preschool teacher noticed changes too. He'd become withdrawn, flinching when other children got too close. But when I brought this up to David, he exploded. For God's sake, Amanda. They're his grandparents. My parents raised me just fine, and I turned out perfectly normal. He stormed out that night, leaving me alone with my thoughts and growing fear. That's when I ordered the cameras, small, wireless, easy to hide. I felt sick doing it, knowing it was probably illegal, but the alternative, continuing to send my son into what I suspected was an abusive situation, was unthinkable. The next Friday, while dropping off Jake's overnight bag, I placed them strategically, one in the guest room where Jake slept, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. The waiting was torture. Every hour that passed, I imagined the worst. When we picked Jake up on Sunday, Margaret's smile seemed especially smug. He had a little accident on the stairs, she said, showing me a fresh bruise on his shoulder. Perhaps if you worked on his coordination instead of babying him. I waited until that night, after David left for his late shift at the hospital, after Jake was finally asleep in his bed. With shaking hands, I connected to the camera's feed and began to watch. The footage started normally enough, Jake playing with his toys, Margaret preparing meals, Richard watching TV. But then I saw it, the first incident. Jake accidentally spilled his juice at dinner. Richard's reaction was immediate and terrifying. Clumsy little brat, he roared, yanking Jake from his chair. The force sent my son sprawling across the floor. Margaret didn't even flinch, calmly wiping up the spill as her husband dragged Jake toward the stairs. I forced myself to keep watching, tears streaming down my face. The accident on the stairs wasn't an accident at all. Richard had pushed him, not hard enough to seriously hurt him, but enough to make him fall. Maybe that will teach you to be more careful, he snarled while Jake cried. But it was the psychological abuse that broke my heart. They would lock him in the guest room for hours for minor infractions. This is for your own good, Margaret would say through the door. Your mother has made you weak. We're teaching you to be strong like your father. I watched all night, documenting everything. By morning, I had pages of notes and dozens of video clips saved. I called in sick to work and took Jake to his pediatrician, Dr. Stevens, who had known our family for years. I need you to document everything, I told her, showing her the bruises while Jake played with toys in the corner. I'm going to need official medical records. Dr. Stevens' face grew grave as she examined Jake, then graver still when I showed her some of the footage. Amanda, she said quietly, this is clear abuse. We need to report this immediately. I nodded, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I know, but first, I need to show David. He needs to see what his parents are really like. And if he doesn't believe you, she asked, though I think we both knew the answer. Then I'll go to the police myself, I replied, watching Jake stack blocks with careful concentration. I'm done letting everyone tell me I'm crazy for wanting to protect my son. I left Dr. Stevens' office with detailed medical reports and a plan. That evening, I set everything up in our living room. My laptop with the footage queued up, Dr. Stevens' reports spread out on the coffee table, and photos of every bruise Jake had come home with over the past 3 months. David was due home any minute. Jake was safely at my sister's house, away from whatever fallout was coming. I touched the USB drive in my pocket, containing copies of everything. Whatever happened next, I was ready to fight for my son. The front door opened and David called out, "Amanda? Why is your car here? Aren't you supposed to be at work?" I took a deep breath, straightening my spine. "David, we need to talk about your parents. And this time you're going to watch something before you tell me I'm imagining things." His footsteps paused in the hallway. "Amanda, not this again?" "Yes, this again," I said firmly. "And after you see what I'm about to show you, you'll have to make a choice. Your son's safety or your parents' lies." He stepped into the living room, his face darkening as he saw the photos spread across the table. I pressed play on the first video clip, watching his expression as his father's voice filled our living room. "Clumsy little brat." David's face went pale, then red, then pale again. This was the moment of truth. Would he finally see reality, or would he continue to defend the monsters who had raised him? The color drained from David's face as he watched his father shove Jake on the stairs. His hands gripped the edge of the couch so tightly that his knuckles turned white. For 5 long minutes he sat in complete silence, watching clip after clip of his parents' abuse. "Turn it off," he finally whispered, his voice hoarse. I can't watch anymore." I paused the video but didn't close the laptop. "There's 3 days worth of footage like this, David. Every time they told us he fell or had an accident, this is what was really happening." He stood up abruptly, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "This has to be some kind of mistake. Maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe what?" I cut him off, my voice sharp. "Maybe our 4-year-old son deserved to be thrown across a room for spilling juice. Maybe your mother was right to lock him in a dark room for hours because he cried for me." David ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen countless times when he was stressed. "You don't understand. My parents, they're strict, yes, but they're not abusive. They raised me the same way, and I turned out." "You turned out what, David?" "Fine." I stood up, forcing him to look at me. "Is that why you freeze every time your father raises his voice? Why you still flinch when someone moves too quickly near you?" His face contorted, a mix of anger and something else. Fear, maybe, or recognition. I don't. I softened my voice, taking a step toward him. "Think back, David. Really think. When Jake comes home with bruises and says he fell, doesn't it remind you of something? The excuses you used to make at school. The stories you had to tell." He sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. I thought they changed. They seemed so different with Jake, so loving. They seemed loving in public with you too, didn't they? I sat beside him, not touching, but close enough to show support. That's how abusers work. They hide it. They make everyone else think they're perfect and make their victims think they're the problem. A sob escaped him, raw and broken. "Oh God, what have I done? I let them. I sent my son to them. I told you were crazy for worrying." "Yes, you did," I agreed, not sugarcoating it. "But right now, that's not what matters. What matters is what we're going to do about it." He looked up at me, his eyes red. "We have to stop them. We have to protect Jake. But," he hesitated, "if we go to the police with this, everyone will know. My career at the hospital, their reputation in the community." I felt my heart sink. Even now, he was thinking about appearances. "David, look at me. Your father threw our son across a room. Your mother locked him in the dark for hours. They hurt him deliberately, repeatedly, and convinced everyone, including you, that I was crazy for seeing it. I don't care about reputations anymore. Do you?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the frozen image on my laptop screen. Finally, he squared his shoulders. No, I don't. What do we need to do?" I pulled out my phone. "First, we call the police. I already have a case number from Dr. Stevens' report this morning. Then we get a restraining order. They don't come near Jake again, ever." "My father will fight it," David warned. He has connections in town, friends in the department. Let him fight, I said grimly. I have video evidence, medical records, and a pediatrician ready to testify. But David, I caught his eye. I need to know you're with me on this. Really with me, because if you're not, if you waver or try to defend them again, I'll lose you both, he finished quietly. I know, I can't promise I won't struggle with this. They're my parents and this is bringing up a lot I thought I'd buried. But I promise you, Amanda, I choose Jake. I choose protecting our son. As if on cue, my phone buzzed, my sister, asking if it was safe to bring Jake home. I showed David the text. Tell her to wait, he said, wiping his eyes. Let's make the police report first. Start the restraining order process. I don't want him here when my parents inevitably show up demanding explanations. I nodded, typing a quick response to my sister. As I did, another text came through from Margaret. Just checking when you'll be dropping Jake off this Friday. We bought him some new toys to help him be more coordinated. The casual cruelty of it, the way she could pretend everything was normal while systematically abusing our son, made my blood boil. David read the text over my shoulder and actually growled. Don't answer her, he said, his voice hard. Let them find out when the police show up at their door. I set my phone down and pulled up the police department's number. Before I dialed, I looked at David one more time. Are you ready for this? Once we start, there's no going back. He took my hand, squeezing it tightly. I should have been ready to protect him months ago. I should have believed you. I'm sorry I didn't, but I'm ready now. As I pressed dial and the phone began to ring, I caught a glimpse of us in the darkened window, husband and wife, united at last in protecting our child. The officer who answered was professional, efficient, taking down our information and telling us someone would be there within the hour. They're sending someone now, I told David after hanging up. Are you okay? He shook his head. No, but I will be. We'll get Jake therapy, get him the help he needs to heal from this. And he swallowed hard. Maybe I should talk to someone too. About my childhood. About all of it. I leaned against his shoulder, offering the comfort I'd wanted to give him for years. One step at a time. Right now, let's focus on making sure our son never has to be afraid again. The sound of police sirens in the distance made us both sit up straighter. This was it, the moment of truth, the point of no return. Together, I asked. David squeezed my hand again. Together. The next few days passed in a blur of police statements, legal documents, and tears. The officers who came to our house that night were professional but visibly disturbed by the footage. When they left to arrest my in-laws, David insisted on going with them. I need to see their faces, he said. I need them to know I'm choosing my son. I didn't expect the community backlash. The Matthews were pillars of society, Richard the respected retired judge, and Margaret, who ran the hospital's charity foundation. When news of their arrest broke, people took sides quickly. They're such lovely people, I overheard at the grocery store. That daughter-in-law always seemed unstable. But for every whispered criticism, there was a revelation. After the story hit local news, other victims started coming forward. Former neighbors who'd heard screams years ago when David was a child. A housekeeper who'd quit after witnessing Richard's temper. Even David's cousin, now in her 40s, called to say she'd been abused during childhood visits but had been too afraid to tell anyone. The preliminary hearing was set for a Wednesday morning. David and I sat in the courthouse, watching his parents enter in handcuffs. Margaret's perfectly coiffed hair couldn't hide her rage. Richard's face was a mask of cold fury as he spotted us. This is how you repay us, he hissed as he passed our bench. After everything we've done for you. David stiffened beside me but didn't respond. We prepared for this, worked with our therapist on staying strong. Jake was safe at my sister's house, and that was all that mattered. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the video footage, medical records, and newly surfaced testimonies, their lawyer advised them to take a plea deal. They did, but not before Margaret made one last attempt to maintain control. We only wanted to make him strong, she told the judge, her voice trembling with fake tears. Children these days are so soft. We were trying to help. The judge, a mother herself, wasn't moved. Mrs. Matthews, I've watched those videos. That wasn't help. That was the torture of a 4-year-old child. You and your husband will serve time for this. They got 5 years each, with no possibility of early release. It seemed both too much and not enough. After the sentencing, David and I found ourselves sitting in our car in a courthouse parking lot, emotionally drained. "What do we tell Jake?" David asked quietly. "The truth," I replied. "Age appropriate, but honest. That grandma and grandpa did bad things and had to go away, that it wasn't his fault, and that he's safe now." David nodded, then surprised me by starting to laugh, a slightly hysterical sound. "What's funny? I just remembered something," he said, wiping his eyes. "When I was Jake's age, I had this little toy soldier. It was the only toy I was allowed to keep because Father said soldiers were acceptable role models. I used to tell that toy everything, all the scary things I couldn't tell anyone else." He looked at me. "We need to let Jake know he can tell us anything. That will always believe him." "We will," I promised. "And we'll keep going to family therapy as long as he needs it. As long as we all need it." That evening, we picked Jake up from my sister's house. He ran to us, his face lighting up when David scooped him into a bear hug. "Guess what, buddy?" David said, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't have to go to Grandma and Grandpa's anymore. Ever." Jake's small body relaxed instantly. "Never ever." "Never ever," I confirmed. "And we want you to know that you were so brave, and none of what happened was your fault." Later that night, after Jake was asleep in his bed, with his new nightlight and door firmly open, David and I sat on our back porch. "I got a call from the hospital board today," he said. "They want me to take a leave of absence, bad publicity, having an attending physician whose parents are convicted child abusers." I started to protest, but he shook his head. "It's okay. I think I need the break. Time to work through everything with Dr. Harris. Time to be present for Jake's healing." He looked at me. Time to be a better husband and father than mine ever was. I took his hand, remembering the frightened woman I'd been just weeks ago, desperately installing hidden cameras to protect her son. "You already are." 6 months later, we sold our house and moved to a new city, a fresh start away from the whispers and stares. Jake started kindergarten, making friends easily now that the shadow of weekend visits was gone. His nightmares became less frequent, though he still slept with his door open. David took a position at a different hospital where nobody knew his history. He continued his therapy, slowly unpacking decades of buried trauma. Some days were harder than others, but he never again dismissed or minimized concerns about Jake's safety. As for me, I learned to trust my instincts again. When other mothers at Jake's school commented on how overprotective I seemed, I didn't apologize or explain. They hadn't seen what I'd seen. They hadn't fought the battle I'd fought. One evening, I found David sitting on Jake's bed, watching our son sleep. "What are you thinking about?" I asked softly. "How close we came to repeating the cycle," he whispered. "If you hadn't been strong enough to stand up to all of us." I sat beside him, both of us watching the peaceful rise and fall of Jake's chest. "We broke the cycle," I said firmly. "That's what matters now." And in the quiet of our new home, watching our son sleep safely in his bed, we knew that sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is admit they were wrong, and the strongest thing they can do is protect their child, no matter the cost.